Sometimes they write a novel about mindset.
Nice.
I'm trying to segue.
No, it's all right. He is trying to introduce somebody who is going to be with us for the rest of the hour, and that is Steve Sadler, who's been with us before here on the Internet Advisors. Thank you very much for being here. Whoop, there we go.
There you go.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry for taking a little time to talk about this, but I think you've been around the digital world long enough that you know how important this is.
Yeah, most definitely.
Now, you have gone from being an inventor to being a writer. Let's talk about some of the things that you put together up to this point.
Are we talking about technology?
Yeah, technology.
I started, in engineering, many, many years ago. I kind of got out of that and started into the internet world. Made some social media applications for just sending simple messaging to Twitter and Facebook and that type of thing. And then we actually built some e-learning tools, which are used by some large corporations for anywhere from simple training all the way to corporate full corporate training. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but recently we kind of moved into the broadcast world. We have a system called Buzzcast, which it actually sends out media, music. We have an agreement actually with Vivo for sending out music videos for distribution. Mm-hmm. So we dabble in all kinds of different things. And the book actually it was never ever supposed to be a book. It just became a book. And
it's your second book, really.
Yeah.
And very different than the first.
Yeah, the first book was kind of a self-help book, a little bit of history about myself.
Exposure to closure.
Yeah,
yep.
And it talked about social media and how to use search engine optimization and social media to be able to get exposure for your businesses, right? The second one was more like a piece of technology that I thought would be really cool that if I could invent it, but when I started looking at it, I'm like, no, this is never going to be able to be invented, by my company, but maybe in the future if there was enough money put behind it.
Right.
And so I decided to make it into a story. And over the last year, I put about 60 to 70,000 miles back and forth between Detroit and L.A. And while I was on those flights, I just started writing, and the stories kept growing more and more and more to the point I was like, wow, I've got something going here. So this is the first of 3 books that I want to write, and there's a unique character in it.
So tell us a little bit about
the book is called Mindset is the name of the book.
Correct. The Mindset actually is kind of like a headset, so kind of like what we're wearing
it's a device
now.
that you invented.
It's a device, right? It's Bluetooth, and basically what it does is while you're typing on your phone, it's looking at your thought patterns, right? Your brainwaves, and it's recording whatever you typed or matching whatever you typed to your brainwave and recording it in the database. So
it's learning.
It's learning, right?
It's kind of like a key logger,
right? I kind of equate it to when I used to program robots, where I used to move the teach pendant around and I'd self-teach those positions. It's doing the same thing. You're teaching it, but you don't know it. So if I was to buy the device, it'd give you a script. I'd be typing it out, and it'd be learning those words. So the next time that you type them, it actually would appear on the screen.
Ah,
right. So it actually reads your thoughts.
So this is then a device. You know something, Steve? Before January 21st, this would have been unthinkable. But then Microsoft comes out with this thing called HoloLens, and the world is going gaga, because this is a pair of glasses that exist now that you can put on. You can see the world around you, but you can see these kind of it's not holographic images, but at least they're out there in front of you, and you're able to manipulate some of that. So suddenly, what might have seemed fantastic and unbelievable, unthinkable in terms of practice, you're seeing now. Mindset must seem then to be something that maybe is a lot more practically close to hand.
Yeah, I mean, if you combine that with those EEG caps that they're putting on people's heads now, and they're moving things around on the screen.
Yeah, and the gamers are using them too, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's several companies that release them for video gamers, right?
Well, before 1900, if you had told somebody that you could whisper on this side of the world, they could hear you on the other side of the world, you go, no way, right? But we know how to read radio signals now, radio waves. Well, these are brain waves. When is it going to be really possible to actually read brain waves? It's just a matter of time.
We're going to talk more about this kind of delving into the potentials of technology with Steve Sadler here, who is both an inventor and an author, as we continue. It's fun every now and then to have a little more elbow room and not have to kind of race from one topic to the other, and that's what we're doing in this hour of the program, because it's a 3-hour show today. By the way, if you are listening to us right now and you've got a problem with your computer or with anything that has to do with the digital world, Stay tuned, because at the top of the hour, at 6 o'clock, we're going to be opening up our phone lines, and you'll be able to call in 800-859-0957 with your question. And we've got some guys in here, Ed and Shane and Gary, who will be more than happy to put their expertise to help your problem, help solve that problem. Right now, however, this is kind of a lot of fun. We're talking with Stephen Sadler, who's in studio. Steve, thank you for coming in again. And we've been talking about your brand new book called Mindset. You've had your hands in the digital world. God, sounds funny because it's not a corporeal place, but you've really been involved in inventing applications and doing a lot of things there. You kind of stepped outside of that, or maybe deeper into it, and imagined a device called Mindset, and that's the basis for your book. And as you were saying before, the device essentially is able to kind of eventually read your thoughts.
That's correct.
That's just the beginning, though, of its capabilities, right?
Well, that's what he designed it to do. What ends up happening is...
Your hero.
Right, the hero, Jack Cooper. Right. What happens is a venture capital firm starts to back it, and they decide that they have other reasons for using the technology. So they want to actually put thoughts into people's head and actually reinforce the pleasure center of the brain they place the thought there. So, if, for example, if someone's running for president or a political position, they send out the signal, which is kind of like a tweet, which has the brainwave in it, reinforces the brainwave with a little bit of serotonin. All of a sudden, that person's voting for that person.
And this reminds me of the typical thing that happens. You have a scientist or an engineer that does something, and they think only good things can come of their product until someone else gets a hold of it and they turn it to evil use.
Well, I think of the Internet, period. The Internet.
Yes.
Which it was just invented to be a way of efficiently communicating information back and forth.
That's right.
In large quantities between specific points, right?
Well, between any point.
With
which
ARPANET,
was the neat thing, and it was really back in '73 when Bob Kahn and Vint Cerf invented TCP/IP, which was the protocol, and gave it away to everybody, right? And that was it. Anybody that installed that protocol onto your computer, you could then communicate with anybody else that had that.
Yes,
so it wasn't proprietary.
And that's like the
that
basis.
was the start of it.
Isn't it incredible?
And I'm sure they were not thinking of, of dastardly things.
No, they weren't thinking of the dark
things.
web or bitcoins or hacking 80 million, health records or anything else like that. But Ed, you've got to be, you were a tinkerer. You can imagine this happening, right?
Oh yeah, I can see this happening easily.
So the idea is that this is a benign thing that he's developed initially, that is then turned around to being something that's used to manipulate people.
Yeah,
and it's a novel, but like we were talking briefly in the other segment, I think this is not that far from reality, and in some respects, anytime we invent good technology for good, it can be turned around.
Do you think this? I was going to say, do you think this device could be built right now?
Parts of it. I think if it was backed by enough money, I do actually.
So and I trust an awful lot of what you say, because when I look at your website, it lists all of your patents that you have, and you were actually going to invent this type of technology. You just didn't have the resources to actually go do it, right?
Well, I think I've got to the point in my life where I'm tired of just, going after investors and creating another business plan and doing all that stuff. And actually, I put that in the forward of the book. But yeah, I mean, if you can do anything, you put enough money behind it, you can do anything. And I could actually see this happening. I could. Yeah.
And there's bits and pieces of the technology that are already in use. We're talking, we've been talking a little bit about reading mind waves. We already do that. It's just too expensive to do that on a mass scale right now.
I was just looking at just kind of thumbing through and looking at a little bit of the book, and your hero Jack at one point rips the set off of his head and throws it away,
right?
Because he realizes that it's having an effect on him.
Right.
Are you ever tempted to just kind of throw away all the digital stuff and find a cave somewhere?
Well, I just switched to this new iPhone 6 Plus.
Yeah,
I love mine.
Yeah, that one too.
It's like a drug.
Yes, I agree.
And I think my wife would agree. It's like it's just like you can't get enough of it, right? I mean, it's a very cool experience, and it sucks you in.
Yeah,
so,
it's always with you, and it's
right.
big enough you can actually almost use it as an iPad, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like having a computer with you all the time.
And then I look at my grandson, who's 11 years old, Jack. God bless him, he's a bright, bright kid. But he is constantly plugged into something. Constantly.
Yep, and I've heard several reports about you sometimes you just need to unplug to get that creative side of yourself flowing again, and that's something that you said is that when you're flying between here and L.A. and you got all that white noise and then engine noise is when you find yourself you're unplugged and you just let the creativity flow, and for yourself, that's probably worked out very well with this book. And with my kids, I had to have them unplug all the time, just so that they could just, let that creativity side of themselves.
I would be interested in the rest of your comments about this, because my son thinks that he's more creative when he's collaborating with others, because he'll do something, somebody will add to it, somebody else will add to it, they're collaborating, and they do that very, very quickly online, and they come up with something better than any of them could have done on their own.
Shane, you're shaking your head.
No. You can definitely collaborate with other people, but I think then you kind of sometimes I think if it's with friends, you're supporting bad ideas because you don't want to either hurt the other person's feelings.
But downside of
if it's by yourself, you can go, "Oh, that was stupid," or "No, let's move on."
Most of the time, you don't do that was stupid when you need that somebody to tell you it was.
Oh, well.
I don't know. It's just I think there's different ways.
Well, and at that age, kids are just hardwired for communication to do exactly what you said, collaboration. And you're right, some very creative stuff can come out of that. I'm talking the very young, 8 years old. Moms throwing their iPads in the back seat so their 3-year-old will stop screaming. I mean, that's just not right.
It's become an electronic pacifier in that sense.
Yes.
It's kind of built. If you see any new invention, whether it's the HoloLens or whatever it was, or with Kinect, that ability to talk to a machine, they're all built as this is going to enhance us. And I think we've kind of, as a culture, at least here in the United States, I think in the Western world in general, we've bought that this is enhancing us somehow, when in reality, your book is kind of saying, yeah, but you know what? You're also giving up something. You're giving up something of your person. Is that part of the message you're giving with this, Steve?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, you could either be, you can absorb content or you can create content, right? I think we become to the point where all we do is take in content. And if you go, we're spending a lot of time in L.A., I see the people that are the most successful are obviously the ones that make movies, the ones that create the content on the other side. I don't think there's a balance anymore with the way that we are as a population. We're taking in all this content, but we're not producing anything anymore.
Yeah.
And that needs to be. You have to equal that out somehow. And with this technology, obviously, I mean, this goes beyond it, because now they're going to be broadcasting directly inside your mind when you don't want them to.
Right.
And that takes content to a
Well, I'm interested, Stephen. You actually are the expert here, because you have a patent around social media campaign system, and you've been working with social media for probably longer than all of us. Does social media help make you a little more creative? Does it destroy that creativity? And I know it might be different for different people, but what's your opinion on this?
I think it does both. I mean, some people will just go onto Facebook and they'll sit there all day long and read everyone else's content, or they'll be creative. And they'll make, a cool picture, a cool video, and then they become the broadcaster. So
that's interesting, yeah.
Right. I mean, it is all of those social media sites. They, for the longest time, nobody wanted to call social media broadcast, but it is.
It is. Yeah.
It's a sounding board for everyone.
And it allows everybody to broadcast, right? It allows everybody to be creative where other people can see it.
Absolutely.
Right, and it's what Cal used to talk about, consumption and production. And very similar to what you're saying, or exactly what you're saying. The iPad is a consumption device, not necessarily a device used for production, like the Windows Surface is used for production.
And that's why I have both sitting right in front of me.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Shane, how do you balance that out then? How do you balance that? As you say, more information coming in, so we're kind of swelling with all this information we've got, but
it's hard. It's hard because I'm always constantly thinking, boy, this is something else. I'm sitting here hours, taking in all this information, and you almost feel like guilty not putting anything out. like you force yourself sometimes to put something out there so you don't feel like that lurch.
Well, that's
you know?
probably pretty good, though,
You know?
because now, as Steve was saying, you are creating.
Yeah, I mean...
Right. I'm interested in the connection to the gaming world.
Yeah.
Because, and maybe we can talk about that in just a moment when we come back, Shane and Steve Sadler. Steve Sadler, by the way, is the author of Mindset. And if you go to our site, internetadvisor.net, there's a little trailer that you can watch, a really neat one that you guys developed about Mindset, and then you'll find that right on our homepage. You can click on Play the Trailer and find out a little bit more about that. We'll be back in just a moment to continue our conversation about Mindset. The future is here right now. I hope that you've been enjoying this conversation. We don't often have this kind of elbow room to talk about these things, and Steve Sadler is with us. Thank you so much for your book called Mindset, and you will find out more information about that by going to internetadvisor.net. But it's kind of neat. You have been involved in inventing things in the virtual world, the digital world, and as we were talking during the break, you finally got something you can put in front of you. It's real.
Yeah, exactly. It's physical. With making software and writing.
We're talking about your book.
Correct. The book's physical, but
Yeah.
With writing software and working in the digital world and even patenting technologies that are on a two-dimensional screen, even though some of them are three-dimensional applications, it's still not real-world 3D. And now that I'm sitting here with two books sitting here on the desk. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? This can't go away. It's copywritten, right? Oh, that's digital. But anyways, but the book is more physical, and I can hold on to it, and I can turn it around in my hand, and it gives me a different feeling than I get out of software, which I miss in a lot of ways because I did work in the physical world for a lot of years. I mean, I was in tool and die for a while, engineering, making automotive components, robotic welding, and that type of thing, which was very digital, but still very
concrete,
tactile.
Yeah, very tactile as well. Eddie, you were saying something. We have a disclaimer we should give.
Yes. Well, I was thinking during our last break, we were talking about Mindset, the book, and the ramifications, and we did say that this is about a book, but halfway through the conversation, I realized if we had a listener that tuned in right now, this is a War of the Worlds moment.
Yeah.
The
broadcast.
From the
1920s.
And we were talking about it as if this actually exists, the ability to read thoughts and place thoughts in people's minds.
Right, exactly.
That is not
Please
the case.
do
This
not
is a
help.
wonderfully written science fiction book.
And
Don't jump out of the window. This is just a book. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But it is.
But very near to
You've envisioned something called a mindset, which is a
Yeah.
device that can go over people's heads. The components of which are here right now.
Right.
And Shane, you're in the gaming world. A lot of what you've been talking about in the book in terms of that interface between the gaming world and reality, hard, cold, object I can put in my hand, is in this gaming world, isn't it, Shane?
Oh yeah, they're starting to develop it. I mean, it's at its beginning levels. I mean, you're not going to be able to go out there and play Call of Duty. I mean, anything with fast responses. It's still you put the cap on. It's a gaming cap, and you would think move cursor from right to left or walk forward or turn right. It's in at that level
And it
already.
responds.
Of course, yeah. And it goes through a learning. There's a learning curve process of the software that will help.
That was kind of
So
what
components-
Stephen was saying, and in fact, there's a term for it that I probably can't pronounce, but Stephen,
electroencephalogram.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the one.
Which is a
You could
device
just
that
say
reads the
EEG.
brain,
There.
reads the brainwaves. Ed?
Right.
No, I was just going to say, I think I've seen a few TED Talks on this as well.
Exactly.
For persons that are handicapped in a wheelchair and they
right.
want to move a robotic arm to feed themselves and stuff like that.
Exactly, and it wasn't it a woman who was
and it
able
works.
to, a woman who was able to use her thoughts to actually lift a cup of coffee and to take a drink from it and put the cup back down with a robotic arm, but we're only using her brain waves to accomplish this. Steve, you actually are kind of putting all of that into the book and imagining that there is a device out there that could do this kind of thing. And as I said, before January 21st, 2015, I would have said, that's a ways away.
Oh, wait a minute.
Boom.
Do we know that there isn't a device like that?
There's
There's the conspiracy theory.
What mad scientist
theory
is
out
in
there.
a studio somewhere, creating something like this? I think it's Elon Musk. Okay,
He's got one of these?
I wouldn't be surprised. But he's talking about like creating an alternate internet by putting satellites in outer space, a few $1 billion. And I mean, he's the kind of person to take a lot of money and put it behind some idea like that.
Well, that's the thing about the net neutrality you were talking about. I mean, if the internet starts to be locked down, there's a lot of smart people that'll come up with Internet 2, 3, for, and so on and so on.
And ways of getting around it.
All right, it started in universities anyways. I mean,
right here.
Yeah, but we just shouldn't allow it to be locked down.
No,
we shouldn't allow the FCC to do this.
Smart people never will. I mean, they'll go around it one way or another. That's the way humans are.
You think of the dark web, which is, we had a show on that once. That's that kind of level of connection over the same internet that all of us innocently talk about. That's where the thing called Silk Road, and they're selling drugs and guns, and they're saying maybe ISIS is being funded through that.
Right.
I mean, it already exists in that sense that you can do a whole lot more than you ever imagined.
Yeah, anonymously, without tracking.
And with going back to the FCC, they're only regulating U.S. companies, right?
Exactly.
The Internet's worldwide.
Steve?
Inside the book, there's one character. He's like a major hacker, right? And his name's Big Mike. But, I mean, he does all kinds of different things by taking a couple of convergent satellite dishes and able to scan for, people's open Wi-Fis and be able to connect and hack through it, and also, connect to, like, back channels. I mean, there's all kinds of back channels that, the regular Internet user has no idea about, but those exist, So it's, it's still, as locked down it'll be, it's still the wild, wild west, and it's just the way it is.
You have kids, right? 3 kids?
I do have 3, yeah.
What kind of a world do you envision them living in?
Well, they're all 3 of them are different. So one's very artsy. The other one is she's going to OU. She's taking a chemical biochem. So she's very smart. Mike, he's back in Canada. He was working for BlackBerry for a lot of years, and now he's with another mobile company. But I don't know. I mean,
do you see them living in a mindset kind of world?
I think I can probably see all of us in the next 10 years living in this kind of world.
Just 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's coming quickly. I mean, look how fast television is changing. I mean, some people are deplugging completely from cable, and the whole net neutrality thing really is about controlling bandwidth, because everyone knows that TV is going to be going over the Internet.
This blows my mind. My grandfather was almost 100 years old when he died. He had been born in the late 1800s. And we once thought that Grandpa Brown had experienced the horse and buggy world of central Wisconsin in the late 1800s. So he had gone from that, and he had lived long enough to see man set foot on the moon. Right. And then he died in the late 80s, as I say, just a few months from 100 years old. I wonder at our time, in a span of 10 years from now, I'll be 78 if I'm still around. And in my lifetime, I think of all the stuff that's happened, because it went from the world of radio for me to television, then to the Internet, and now it almost is as if this technology is invading the very world that I live and breathe and walk in.
Well, could you see a mindset controlling my Uber-based drone that will take me, with autonomous vehicles, right, and be able to call one up and fly me somewhere?
I just want my flying car. That's all I want. Walt Disney said I would have it now.
I figured we'd already have flying cars by now.
That's exactly it.
I think it's still 15 years away.
Yeah, but with the drone technology, if you upscale that, boom, mix that with your autonomous vehicles, bam, man, we're almost there.
We are.
But then you also think that
10 years away.
There's a world full of very hungry people. There are billions of people who are living on just on the bare edge of survival. And we here kind of in the first world are thinking of all flying cars and all the rest of that.
They're thinking of clean water.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I'm really excited about people who, for instance, are using like gravity to produce light in devices that can be taken, and very inexpensive ways of doing it. Some TED Talks you were talking about, people who are taking technology and bringing it clean water and light. Do you folks understand that clean water and light are a miracle? To most of the people on the planet, because they don't have it.
And I think myself, I don't think we can make that enlightenment and technology-wise until we solve some of our social issues. I think that's kind of holding us back a little bit.
Yeah, they're not social media issues.
Yeah, not social media issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Or we become like those characters in WALL-E who are overfed and are floating around and the drones are doing the work. Steve, this is a fascinating book, both because of a world that it envisions. Now, this is the first 3 books. It's called Mindset by Stephen Sadler, and you'll see if you go to internetadvisor.net, there's a great trailer you can watch. Steve, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. All right, folks.
Thanks, Steve.